Hello, worldies, and welcome back to my naughty little channel. I hope you are all doing so well, so amazing. I don't even know where to begin. Today, I want to start a series where well, maybe it's not going to be a series, but I want to just put some of you on game, and some of this maybe could be obvious to some of you, but I just want to talk about certain women that you are going to need to stay away from and avoid at all costs on your level up journey. So whether you have always known this, like, oh, my mom taught me not to talk to girls like that or whatever, like I've already known that, I've been knowing that, or if, let's say you're on your level up journey and you are maybe feeling as though you have some people around you that you need to cut off. I'm going to kind of try to explain the why and the who of different types of people you're going to need to stay away from. Now, part of the reason that I want to speak about this is because I feel like so many women who are exoticals, women who can connect to this content and this sector in general, whether you are not necessarily an exotical, but you just relate to the high maintenance, social climbing, pretty privilege aspects of this content, or if you are, an exotical, you have likely been gaslit by people where, and this can even happen as you're leveling up, where people will literally be like, they'll try to like guilt you into not having standards for the people that you surround yourself with. And I feel like some of us, just due to like media and everything, and I've brought this up before, I feel like they're always depicting like a hyper feminine type of girl in media, typically as being a mean girl. If you're popular because you're mean to people and stuff like that. You're like a bully. It's never just that you're like just naturally magnetic and people really like you and you're really pretty. You don't have to necessarily be like a bully or a bad person to be that pretty girl or that high maintenance girl, but oftentimes in a lot of the movies that we've seen, that is how it's depicted. Like, even when I think about like the Bring It On movies with the cheerleaders, they are oftentimes depicted as these catty women who talk about each other, want to steal each other's boyfriends, and they're like bullying everybody else, and people are like afraid of them. And some of these things could be true. Like, people can be afraid of you maybe, and it has nothing to do with anything that you've done. It could just be that you are very beautifully striking and they see that you socially have power and they just know that you could wield it against them. But I guess let's get started with the first type. So the first type of woman that I will say that I have learned that you're going to need to stay away from is women who look like they do drugs. And I hope I can say drugs on YouTube. I never know what I can say. I wish that I could just like find a specific list of like the profanity and the other words, but people are so sensitive about everything nowadays. It's like, oh, you can't say that or your video is going to get flagged or they're going to throw a disclaimer on it. So maybe I'll come up with another word for that just in case that's a word I'm not supposed to be saying. I'm going to call them dergs. So women who look like they do dergs. What do I mean by this? Now, some people, you may be in my audience, you may be somebody who's never drank, you've never smoked, you've never tried anything, or you may be somebody who currently does stuff, or you have in the past and you decided to give it up. But I will say this, there's a big difference between women who maybe partake, they hit a joint from time to time, or even people who could be, there are some pretty girls who are full-on potheads and things like that, but nobody would know. When people can look at you and tell that you do drugs, you're doing something wrong. Nobody should be able to know. Like, I know that, throughout my life, I've lived and I have dabbled with things. I have been prone to escapism in the past, and I did never like hard drugs, or hard drugs, but I have. Hold on, let me just Google that right now. Cause I'm like, can you say drugs on YouTube? Hold on. Oh, okay. I can say drugs. Okay. So, never hard drugs, but I have tried a thing or two. Like, I don't want to get into the specifics. Nothing how people will kind of sort things into the the black people drugs and the white people drugs. I've never done anything. I don't know. I don't need to tell you guys all the specifics, but I'll just leave it a little mysterious. I have tried certain things, and I don't do anything now. Currently, I don't plan to do things in the future. Currently, I'm only taking drugs if my psychiatrist prescribed them to me. But I never, ever, ever was the type of person where people could look at me and tell. Like, I've always been in situations where maybe I'm in a social setting and somebody's asking everybody else for a lighter, but they don't ask me. Yeah, it's because I never looked like I smoked anything, and I don't know what y'all are imagining. I promise it was nothing that started with a C. I've never tried anything that start with a C and then that start with the M-E. I was say, yeah, I've tried with the M. Nothing that start with the H. Never tried that hair on. None of that crazy stuff. But I I remember being in situations where I'd be like, oh my God, why are you not asking me? Just like thinking that. And I'd be like, hey, you need a lighter? I have one. And people will like almost whisper it to me. Like they feel like it's the secret because like, obviously I'm not putting it out there on blast. I wouldn't make it super obvious and everything. People would almost kind of whisper like, oh my God, girl, you smoke? Like, why, world, you smoke? And, I don't anymore, but I definitely have never been the type of person where people can look and tell that girl smokes, that girl has a lighter. And I pride myself on that because I'm like, I will not judge anybody for the stage that you're in life or your particular views on, different substances and everything. But I will say that I just don't think that aesthetically it's a good look. And I think that it kind of reveals something about your mindset to me if you are somebody that people can look at and tell that you do drugs or that you've done drugs, which like I don't want to judge anybody. Like if you have been fighting like an addiction from like one of those harder types of substances, keep going. This just might not be the video for you in particular, because I do know that some people, like certain things, like some of those harder things, you might still look like you used to do that a while later, I guess. Like sometimes people just have that look to them, I guess. But to me, it just says that you're not image conscious enough. You are not hanging out in, quality enough circles for that to be an issue. So things that might make you look like you do drugs, there are things, it's not even just a look, it's a smell also. Like walking around smelling hella loud all the time, to me that's insane. And a lot of people, they don't realize that it's like people will get like maybe the blunt effects, or they'll just throw on like some perfume after. But people don't really understand that that smell can be in your clothes. It can be in your hair, especially if you're a part of the unambiguous Black community that feels like, oh, for my hair to grow, I have to wash it 2 times a year. My hair grows more when it's dry and dirty. No shade. Maybe a little shady, but like it's in your hair, it's in your clothes, it's in the smell of your furniture, it's in the smell of your car, it's in the smell of your purse. And I feel like I just feel like scent is a really important thing to me. Like the other day, I was in nature and I smelled something and I was like, it smelled sweet. To be honest, I've been meaning to do some research to figure out what it was that I was smelling, but it smelled sweet, but it smelled, have you ever smelled like rotten fruit maybe, where it's like, it smells sweet, but not a good sweet. Like it smells too sweet, like nasty sweet. Whatever I was smelling, I was like, ew, what is this? Like it just smelled too fruity. Like I don't know what it was. I was like, even like scents like that, like you don't want to be the person in a not well ventilated area who's got really heavy, really thick scent on you that's like overpowering to other people, or even like one of those really cheap sprays that just mainly smells like alcohol more than anything else. I am not the type of person, like, I try not to be classist because in all actuality, I am not balling. I just have, a certain standard for myself. I'm shooting for higher. I've been in certain positions, and what's helped me get out of certain positions that I've been in is that I've never thought of myself as somebody who permanently identified with a certain class, and permanently lacked empathy or humanity for people of another class. Because I feel like how do you like if you're in a spot where you're broke and you hate everybody who's not broke, you're going to energetically feel opposed to making more money, keeping money, welcoming better opportunities. So I feel like whatever level you're at, if you want to get to the next one, you have to have some level of empathy and understanding and seeing the humanity in the people at the next level. Like I always just think like when people, a lot of people, they can be working so hard and I've seen people, unfortunately, it's sad that I can say this, but I've noticed how that mindset stays with people. I've been around certain people where they identify with a lower class as part of their permanent identity. It's one thing, I'm a big believer in like, you don't have to be ashamed of what you've been through. So I think there's one thing to like be in denial about what you've been through, but I also don't feel like people are necessarily entitled to knowing your past struggles and whatnot. It really just depends on your goals. If you're trying to lean towards more relatable or even more empowering, like me, sometimes I try to, not in super, crazy detail, but explain that I've been in certain spots before, just so people who are watching my content know that this is not like a channel for people who are born necessarily with a silver spoon in their mouth and everything has, I don't even have an issue with people who have like been born into wealth. I do not have an issue with that. But my point in bringing that up is just saying that like, you do not have to permanently identify with that class. You don't have to be born poor and be poor in your adulthood and then be poor when you die, because that is, it's just insane how I've seen people who are older than me. I've noticed this when they have like a deep hatred and disdain for people of a higher class of that, like a higher class than them, and they're a part of a lower class, and they kind of just like permanently identify with struggles. Like there's nothing to me just sadder than maybe you were a child and you saw somebody, maybe they were in your neighborhood, maybe it was somebody in your family, and they were broke when you were a kid. They were broke and poor and struggling when you were a kid, and you're a full grown adult, and somehow you have financially surpassed them. They've had ample amount of years to get their stuff together. And a lot of times, like, unless it's somebody who's dealing, I won't include people who are like struggling with like deep mental health or like schizophrenia and stuff like that, or even like veterans. I think that those are like kind of special cases. But I feel like, if you're otherwise a capable type of person, you should be able to set your sights higher and in time be able to achieve that. But, even when I was, not to my financial position that I'm at now, I still never thought that it was acceptable to be walking around places smelling like weed, smoking weed all up in public and stuff, to the point where random kids can be walking by, people who could be fighting their own addictions. Now they're getting high just because they decided that they wanted to walk down the street, or just because they wanted to hang out in the park or something. Whatever you want to do, I just feel like it is more considerate to everybody else if you do that in the privacy of your own home. But to me, it just goes to say that you don't plan to ever have anything better than what you have now. Because I've been in situations where, maybe I was not in such a good financial position, but because of the way that I carried myself, people from other classes felt comfortable reaching basically back. A lot of people who have wealth, it's very important to them, whether it's just for the tax break, or whether it's just to try to prove that they're a good person, or whether because they really do have a heart for service and whatnot. For a lot of them, it is important for them to give back to people. Some people, they get it all and then they feel guilty. Sometimes people, they have internalized these beliefs about grief and hoarding wealth and stuff like that. And even if they started off in the projects, in the slums or whatever, and they literally got it out the mud, people will still try to make them feel bad once they then made it. So a lot of people of higher classes, they are looking for people to mentor, to invest into, to give an opportunity to just bring them into a new circle. And I'm a big believer in, when it comes to social climbing, I would say, like, of course, you want to be around peers sometimes. And of course, you may be in a place where you want to give back to the people who maybe remind you of your past self. And, maybe you have a heart for service and you want to give back even before you are super balling and have it all the way made. That's totally fine to just have that heart where you want to give back. But I just feel like, you don't want to put yourself in a position to where you are always the head honcho, the big kahuna in a space all the time. You don't always want to be that person. I'm a big believer in, when I think of the biggest leaps I've been able to have in my finances, in my social status, things like that, even in pretty privilege, it's when I've been able to be secure enough in myself to say, okay, I'm going to go into the room where I have the least amount of money. I know the least etiquette. I know the least about the world stage and about, I'm the least worldly person in the room. I am, even places and situations where I was the biggest back. Maybe I was the woman in the room who was the lowest maintenance, had the lowest amount of social status. And I feel like showing up in those rooms with open ears and open heart, with empathy, giving people a chance. Like, so many people, they don't even understand that it's like you could literally be talking yourself out of a blessing by sitting there speaking down on the person who has the position in society that maybe you want, the person that you should be inspired by, but instead you are giving them this energy that you are actually envious, that you feel as if you are more entitled to what they have than they are. That is how you block your blessings. It's okay to feel a little jealous at times and be like, dang, I wish I had that. But once you start getting into, I don't have that because they have it, they shouldn't have it, they don't deserve it, I'm more deserving, that's when you're going down the wrong path. So I feel like with the whole looking like you do drugs, it just says that you don't care about your presentation. You are not really trying to social climb. Of course, I love to say oh yeah, forget what everybody thinks about you, but no, we are social creatures. Your opportunities, your friendships, your mentors, they're all going to come to you through people, places, and things. And I'm remembering that is, I believe, something that I got from Manifest Out. I kind of reference her sometimes because I remember there was a time that I was watching all of her videos back to back to back. And so I just remember that her content one day I want to make a video like kind of shouting out maybe like a list of content creators that really helped me with my mindset and whatnot, because there are so many of them, and just beautiful, amazing girls where like maybe I would watch their video in a time where I'm like, dang, she's talking from this place like I'm in survival mode. Like I can't even be thinking about manifesting right now. I can't even think about abundance right now. I need survival. Like I need to be here tomorrow. I need, that is a real thing. Sometimes you're in survival and you might not necessarily feel like certain content is going to be helpful to you. But I am telling you, when I was in survival mode, I always knew that I was not destined to stay there. I always knew that I was destined to have abundance, to be, somebody who could be an inspiration to other people. I knew that I could be a motivator to other people. And I remember even being in situations where I was in survival mode. I didn't have a ton. And I would have people who had more than me still hating on me, wanting to tear me down. That is crazy. Like, you have to feel so bad about yourself to be wanting to tear down a girl. She's literally in survival mode. That girl don't have nothing. Like, I've been in situations where I didn't have nothing, which I don't want to get too deep into my situation, but, I talk about these things from this position because it is possible. I'm not talking about these things from a position of, of course, if you were born beautiful, even if you were born into poverty or you ended up in poverty at a certain point, you still have some sort of privilege. But sometimes, even having that privilege, when you're in survival mode or you're in that lower status place, I've had situations where simply because the fact that, and I've even had people say this to me, people will not know what I'm going through. Not because I feel as though going through and showing that you're going through is like a weakness. It's never been that. It's always been that I've always been that type of person, even when I was on my darkest days, when I was like, yep, this is the day. This day is gonna take me out. My world will be no longer. Like I'm being real. Like we are not being bubblegum and, unicorns, cotton candy over here. Mental health is a real thing. Poverty is a real thing. Trauma is a real thing. All of these different things, like a lot of us, we have had to literally build certain things, whether you were born in a certain position and then through life you fell on hard times, or maybe your parents went through a hard financial season and you ended up having to get used to a new normal for some time, or maybe you were born in poverty and you gained it all and then you lost it all because you just had these limiting beliefs. You felt like money was bad and dirty and evil and made you a bad person. And so you just couldn't hold on to it. Or, something I've been into lately is thinking about how much you can hold. Sometimes when you're on the brink of like your next manifestation or the next big opportunity, sometimes your nervous system can literally be afraid and kind of want to reject it and say, oh my God, I don't know if I can hold this. Like even in my experience as a content creator, I have experienced that in my nervous system where I'm like, oh my God, like I literally remember feeling that. Like I remember when I first started my channel, first posted my first video, I think I ended up with like, maybe it was like 6 subscribers maybe in like my first week or something. And I remember being like, oh my God, like what the heck? That is 6 people listening to my voice, judging me, critiquing me, whatever. And then I had to, each time basically kind of expand my capacity and say, no, I can hold 100 subscribers. I can hold this amount of likes, this amount of comments. I can hold being monetized. And, a lot of times things, they can just come as a shock to your system. And, sometimes you just need to work on that mindset before you get there. And, walking around smelling like weed, red eyes all the time, your lips looking black, your nails looking burnt and stuff like that. You have paraphernalia lying all over the place. You got roaches in your, like, oh my God. I've been in some people's houses or even some people's cars where there is literally just soot and ash and roaches from a blunt just lying around. I done seen people. I literally remember being in this person's house before where they had roaches all up on in their bathroom where the toilet is. So I'm like, so you mean to tell me, like, because I know this is something that has occurred to me. Not everybody is aware that you are supposed to close the lid on your toilet before you flush it. So you mean to tell me that you're in there taking a dump and you have these roaches from all of your blunts that you've smoked in the bathroom on the toilet? And, which is just so unsanitary and disgusting to me. But then you're flushing your toilet and you got all these little poo particles flying through the air, landing on top of your toothbrush, landing on top of, your roaches that you have in your bathroom. And then a lot of people, their favorite type of blunt to smoke, which I'm kind of showing my past just a little bit, but is a roach blunt. They like putting together all of, which if any of you don't know, like, just because I'm just gonna, if you're not aware what that is, sometimes when people are smoking marijuana, if they are smoking like I guess a blunt or a joint, and I'm probably not even using the right terms because I don't even know as much as maybe I should have known, but once it gets to the point where they can't necessarily comfortably smoke it still in their hands, they'll like leave that there, but there's still like some residue and like flour left over in there, and then they will like save them all up and then break them all apart and then combine all of that into kind of like a super blunt, which is like all these different strains of like, this one is indica and this one is a sativa and this one is lemon creamsicle, and this one, or lemon creamsicle is probably not even a flavor. Like, I really wouldn't know. I was definitely like a vape pen girly. Like, I was not, I don't know. I was just always like I'm kind of like a girly girl. I'm like, I am not trying to be burning my fingers. I'm not trying to be dealing with ashes and soot, none of that. I was always, so I could buy this little thing and I don't have to light it and have a, but like I said, I definitely had times where I was not always like that. And I did like keep a lighter on me for certain things, but I just feel like it is not going to help you get to the next point of your life if you are walking around looking like you do I know that when it comes to people dealing with addiction, they can work really hard to hide it. But I'm telling you, like, something I've had to realize, and I've had like that inner conditioning of like, stop thinking that you're better than certain people. You're not too good to talk to this person, which I don't feel like that. Like, I definitely believe that you can get wisdom and learning from anybody. You can learn from the homeless person. You can learn from the crackhead. You can learn from, the sex worker. Not saying that they're lower class, but like, you can learn from any of those groups of people. Like, people can say something that is profound and meaningful, and you never even know how somebody got to that position that they're in life. But something that I have found is when somebody looks like they do drugs, you don't need them around you. They are going to hinder your level up because 9 times out of 10, your aesthetic is not going to match. And I feel like there are sometimes that you'll see people who, like, I remember, like, I've seen videos online where it's somebody who has like fought past an addiction and like you would never know when you look at them. And I'm like, okay, like I understand that means that person, they took accountability for where they were in life and they reached out to get support, and they were not in denial about needing the support, not in denial that maybe they had a disease. They went to, maybe it's AA or NA or whatever, maybe they were in a treatment situation, and whatever it is, they do not look like what they've been through now. And I really respect that. I really commend that. But I would say oftentimes when people are still looking like they do the drugs, I'm telling you. And I feel so bad when I say that because I feel like sometimes it comes off just a little judgmental. But I've been in situations where somebody, I'm like, in my head, I meet them and I'm like, you look like you do drugs. You look like you could be doing drugs right now. And the thing about it is just, it is just kind of a logistical thing, but also like 9 times out of 10, when somebody looks like they do drugs, I say that they are oftentimes more so in escapism and in survival mode, they're not even to the point where they can envision a better life for themselves. They can't even envision being in settings where it would be unacceptable to come in high on something, looking like they just smoked something. You know, the people who have like the super hippy dippy type of aesthetic. I'm like, that's totally fine. But I just feel as though it's going to drag you down, because people like that, a lot of times, unfortunately, when it comes to people who are struggling with addiction, and I don't like when people try to say that, oh, you cannot get addicted to Mary Jane, because that is not true. That is not true. I have been around people who are addicted to that. People who will literally buy that before they will feed their children. People who will literally pop that coochie cat just to get some. Like, you can't tell me that that is not addiction. If you are doing things with your body, with your finances that just don't make sense, you know, even when it comes to things like, if you want to glow up and you want to lose weight, you know, if you want to unbig your back, it's going to be pretty, for most people, smoking Mary Jane gives them the munchies. And, you know, how are you going to say that you want to lose weight, but you keep putting a substance in your body that makes you want to eat more calories than you need, or it makes you want to eat things that are not healthy, that are not good for you? And like, that's an addiction to me. If you're aware that it's hella expensive, you know that you have better financial priorities, you know that it doesn't align with your health and fitness goals, you know, why would you keep doing it? Because you're addicted, because you have an addiction. But, you know, I feel like I don't judge people like that, but they are oftentimes still too much in survival mode to be somebody of any value. And I'm not a believer in like, oh, you should go around using people. However, I do believe that you do become a product of your environments. You do become a product of who you hang around. And there is no benefit to me, unless you're trying to work as a drug counselor. You're trying to be a social worker, unless you're trying to work with people like that in some sort of professional capacity, or even like a philanthropic capacity, like you're trying to feed people and stuff like that. You know, that there's absolutely no benefit to you, because if you are in survival mode and they're in survival mode as well, but they have a different mindset than you, they're not going to help you, you know, in any way, in the fact that it's not even about people giving you money, people giving you opportunities, but those are going to be the people who energetically will just not align with where you're going. You know, I remember being in spaces where I was more so in survival mode, but I was there and I was always watching content from these, you know, personal development types of women, these leveled up women and stuff, because I was like, that's what I'm meant to be. I'm here right now so that I can maybe inspire people in the future that you can literally start at rock bottom. You can literally start at the very bottom, your worst, you know, in survival mode, and you can get there, and it is possible. You know, that's kind of why I believe that I went through certain things that I did. But, you know, when I was there, the things that I wanted to do were just different than what certain people around me wanted to do. Like, I remember being in situations where, you know, I want to, you know, maybe I didn't even have any capital to start a business or anything, but I remember just constantly being hungry for more information about understanding what are the different ways to start a business, what are the different, you know, ways that people are gaining six figures. Like, something I had learned was that a lot of people believe that people who talk about like, oh, you need 6 different streams of income to become a 6-figure earner, or even up to an 8-figure earner. Oh, you need to have this one thing over here and then this other avenue that's completely unrelated, when that's not actually the case. Something that I learned is that a lot of people, you know, take something like maybe fitness. They will try and turn that into as many streams of income from that one investment in that knowledge and information or education as possible. So not only am I going to, you know, get I'm going to be focused on being a trainer maybe to people. I'm going to build another stream of income where I'm training other people to become a trainer. And maybe I'm also going to build another stream of income where I am selling courses to people who want to become a trainer, or I'm also selling, meal plans then, or then I'm also offering in person, then I'm also offering, some sort of merch or workout equipment. I'm also doing some sort of supplements. I'm also, educating people who want to become educators of trainers. Like that in and of itself, that's like 4 or 5 streams of income right there from that same avenue. You're just finding different ways to figure out like, well, people, they want to work out. Okay, some of those people are going to get so inspired and want to also become a trainer. Okay, I've decided that I'm going to train people to become a trainer as well. Okay, people who are new coaches, they also might want to figure out how to avoid certain pitfalls that I've went through. People, they want to improve their body, but they also need to eat. Okay, maybe I can also take it down the nutrition route and stuff like that. That's just something that I was able to learn. And I was watching videos like that, learning some of these things and absorbing this information when I was in survival mode, because I'm like, it's going to be in there. It's going to be in my head. I would be taking notes on stuff when other people around me, they would be sitting there. I'm a big believer in, yes, if you work hard, you deserve to play hard. So whatever that is, if you like to unwind with a glass of wine, I'm not judging you. If you have a guilty pleasure, like you like to play certain video games, I'm not judging that. If you have a guilty pleasure, like you like to watch a certain type of TV show, or even like, I feel like if you're a content creator, keeping up with current events is something that you need to do. And that's something that I would even like to work on more. I'd love to keep up a little bit more with current events so that I can make that type of relevant and timely content for my audience. Because I've noticed that a lot of other content creators do that, and I absolutely love that. But what I've noticed is that like I would be in a spot where it's like, I feel like if you're a content creator, keeping up on celebrity drama and stuff like that, or what's going on maybe the Shade Room, or like the gossip blogs and stuff, that can be work. Knowing what people are talking about, like even especially in this exotical niche, I feel like keeping up with the way that people cover exoticals in the media, that is work related, versus I would be around people where it's like, they were keeping up with it for no reason. Like, you're not a content creator, you're not trying to talk about this in a meaningful way and stuff. And like, I totally understand that, like, and like I said, people, they're entitled to have their guilty pleasures, of course, but at the same time, I feel as though some people just, if that is like 90% of the content that you want to take in, and you don't want to do anything with that, then we just might not be the same. And, your habits are going to be different than the person who looks like they smoke weed. Their hygiene is probably going to be different than yours. Their financial habits are probably going to be different than yours. Like, I remember being in a situation where I knew a person. They were not a friend, but it was more so like an acquaintance that I had originally, like I met them and I was like, oh, they look like they do drugs. And I very much was like, I'm going to keep it very cordial. I don't want to trade numbers or anything like that. At that point, I was more of a people pleaser, and it was harder for me to say no and just say like, oh, I don't really give my number out, which is what I should have just said. I did not say that. What I said instead was, I kept giving them my number, but like 1 digit off, because it's like I didn't want to deal with the confrontation or just stand on my boundary or just unapologetically just say, one and done, I don't give out my number. That could have curved the whole situation. But I went through that for months with that person always being like, hey, I feel like I don't have your number. And me giving it to them again with 1 digit off, 1 digit off. That went on for a while. Then eventually I caved and I gave them my number. Do you know that within a week of them having my number, they called me asking for money so they could buy alcohol? I remember just being so disappointed in myself, so absolutely disgusted, and it reinforced this point that I have, that people like that when they look like it, they're not, because my thing is like, personally, I don't even lend money. I don't lend money to people because, not that I've never done it, but I've never lent money to somebody and then I just got the money back. That has literally never happened in my life, that I lent somebody some money and then I got that money back. Like, I just believe that, like, I would lend people money, and it would just, like, for me, it was just always the principle, because I'm not that type of person. Like, even when it came to me being in not the best financial position, I'm a person where I believe in paying my debts. I don't believe in trying to make somebody feel bad about them. Like, me personally, I don't borrow money from people in the first place. I don't ask people for money. I don't. If I'm asking for money, if I'm asking anybody for money, like, I've maybe asked my godparents for money, like my dad for money. Like, that's who I'm asking for money. I'm not going out asking other people for money, because it's like, why should somebody else just give you money? If I'm asking for money, like, if you need some money, go get a loan, go get a bank, or like a bank loan or something, go get like one of those payday loans or something. I don't think that's a good idea, and I've never done it, but I would say go to an institution or something. Don't go to a person for some money, because why? Like, are you actually going to give them the money back? And like I said, back then I was not as good with just saying no, but I remember just looking like, that is so crazy that person just shamelessly was like, can I borrow money for alcohol? And to me, it's like, looking back on it, I'm like, some people, they just have a different mindset, because it's not like they said, I need Pampers for my baby, I need formula for my child, the babies are starving. It's not even like they said, I need some oil because my baby has no edges, because I am still stuck on the fact that a lot of these babies have no edges. Like, that is an epidemic. Hashtag free the shackles of their follicles from these tight old hairstyles you keep putting on these babies. But for me, it's just like, it's so crazy how people think. Some people, when they're in that state, they're not even thinking in a clear spot. Like me, I'm very much like, I'm the type of person where if I'm trying to borrow, like, I've never gotten a loan or anything like that, but if I were, I'm the type of person where I'm like, how do I flip this money? This is what I have in my bank account. I'm looking at my bank account like, I know there's a way that I could turn, I got a band, I could turn this into 5 bands. How do I do it? And I'm looking for information from people. I'm asking people about, like, can you teach me how you did that? I'm more so curious for the knowledge and everything, because that stuff is priceless. And when people are kind enough to give you their secret to how they did it, how they made it, how they made their first 6 figures, how they became a 7, 8 figure earner and stuff like that, that is going to be so much more valuable than somebody just giving you $20. And every time, like, when I think back to the people that I've lended money to, or that I've lent money to in the past, it's always been somebody who just had that very short-term mindset. They wanted that money just because they wanted to go buy some weed right now. They just wanted to go buy some chicken wings right now. It was just very much in the moment survival mentality. I want immediate gratification, or I'm still struggling with escapism. I don't even want to look at the reality of my situation. And so I need to stay high all the time. I need to stay drunk all the time. I need to stay, stress eating, coping with my struggles with food all the time. And people like that, they're not going to do anything for you but bring you down. And I hate to say it, but it's like, my times when I was able to jump the furthest in my finances, in my beauty, in my health, because health, oh my God, that is such a big thing. I had to get very ruthless. Like, me now, sometimes I think about who I was, and I still have empathy for that girl who really struggled with saying no, and really struggled with boundaries, and felt like she had to please everybody and everything like that. And who I am now, like, the old me would probably be appalled with how good my boundaries are, how easy it is. No, No, no is my favorite word. Because at the end of the day, what I'm aware of is, I don't allow people to gaslight me into thinking that I'm not a generous person, that I'm not a kind person, that I'm not a sweetie pie, all that good stuff. I am aware that people take advantage. So when it comes to the people who are my girlies, I am the sweetest, the kindest. I will help you. I will do any of that for you. But I am aware that you cannot be like that with everybody. And you are going to run yourself ragged trying to be friends with everybody, trying to talk with everybody, trying to key it up with everybody. No, you can't. Sometimes, yeah, you need to leave that hoe in the dust because they're not going where you're going. You will come back to that person in 20 years and they will still be wanting to ask, can I get $12 to buy some weed? Can I get $12? That it's their mindset. Certain things is in you, it's not on you. That's how you have those people who could be born into these tragic, crazy situations. And somehow they really got it out the mud and they were able to build themselves. It's because when they were there, it was a season of their life. But I bet you that from a young age, they were thinking different about stuff. They already knew. They were looking around. They said, I saw this video of this girl the other day. It was a white girl. She was talking about how she remembers growing up in poverty and looking around. And it was either like 11 or 13. She said, I knew at that point. She looked around and she said, oh yeah, I'm going to get out of this situation. Those people who make it, those are those people who, maybe they're in survival mode right now, but they're walking different. They're carrying themselves different. Like I remember being in certain situations where I was in survival mode. I didn't have a ton, but it was still important to me. Like maintenance was always important to me. I was always doing my skincare. I was always making sure I was taking care of my hair. I was always making sure that I was trying to eat healthy and everything like that. I was always making sure that I was trying to journal and take care of myself spiritually and mentally and things like that. It was always important to me because at the end of the day, I was like, I'm not going to be here for forever. And I'm not going to allow my circumstances of right now to take years off of my life. Because when I get out of this situation, I want to be healthy. I want to be beautiful and I want to be mentally good. And I want to be able to really enjoy all the fruits of my labor. I want to be ready because you don't know who you're going to meet. You don't know if you can meet your next employer. You don't know if you can meet, your next partner, your husband or whatever. I don't know, I don't know what it is. I've been in this space where I kept talking about oh, I don't want to date, but I don't know, after taking a long break, I am starting to be curious. I'm not yet dating, but I am now curious. So you're probably going to hear me. Y'all let me know if I start sounding and reverting back to male-centeredness. But I am now curious about dating and things like that. And, may start dating eventually. Maybe I'll start dating next year or something. Right now, I'm really enjoying not dating right now and just focusing on myself. But you don't know who you can meet. You can meet somebody who really wants to invest in your idea. You really just don't know. And a lot of times people, they are blocking their blessings because they put themselves in a position to where they have to get ready. You stay ready. Make sure that you're ready because you don't know who you can meet. You don't know when you're going to see that video that's going to change your life. Maybe this video is the one that's going to set you on a path and change your life. You never know who you could bump shoulders with. You do not know. And I very much am that person where I'm like, I've had situations where people are looking at me and they don't like me, even though they have more than what I have in the time, but I'm sitting there carrying myself a certain type of way. I'm still, I've been in situations where I was broke and I still felt like it was important to get up and do my skincare, getting, the cheapest skincare that I could, or trying to make skincare out of stuff that I could get in the kitchen and stuff like that. I've been in those situations. I still thought it was important to have clean clothes that were ironed and that were fitting me and everything like that, because I'm like, when you don't look like what you've been through and you are open and you're willing to learn, there are so many people who are just waiting to find their protege or the next person that they're going to mentor, the person that is ready and capable, and they just don't have the resources yet. They just haven't bumped into it. But there are certain things that, you just can't teach people. I remember being in certain spots where I was broke, and I might have that person who has a little bit more than me, and they're still showing me jealousy and animosity. And why is it? Because they could see that there was something in me, not on me, that they knew I was going to surpass them. They knew it. They knew that where they were, that was their cap. They knew that where I was, the way that, I just was a big believer in, everybody's going through it. I have always made it a point that I don't ever want to be the stick that breaks somebody else's camel's back. I've never wanted to be that. So I've been through those stages where, people are looking at me like, why is that girl so happy? Why does she always seem like she's having a good day? Oh, I'm not having a good day. Actually, that's just not your problem. I'm sitting there, I've gone through different spiritual modalities and stuff. Maybe I'm sitting there journaling about it. Maybe I'm, praying about it. Maybe I'm crying it out. I could literally be hanging on by a thread, but I'm the type that I would pull it together and I would say, how can I go and bring more kindness to the next person? How can I, be a witness to other people's pain? Like me personally, I've always been that person from a young child where people have always felt very safe telling me their pain and telling me their dark stories. And I've always been so honored by that, by the fact that people meet me, and people, like, a lot of times the stuff that they've gone through, it can really be shameful to say what certain people, like what you've gone through. Like, even this is a video that I want to make at a certain point, because I've been talking about like how I want to dive deeper into this concept that EU has created of like speaking about hierarchy thinking, and I want to kind of get into the specifics of these certain hierarchies people can have and how it can impact you socially. But I have noticed that there is a hierarchy where some people, because of what they've been through, they feel like they are lower than. I have seen that some people, they will actually feel superior to you because they have not dealt with a certain thing that you've dealt with. I've seen that. Like, I've seen certain women who will, like, I'm trying to think about like what the video was about, but I knew it had something to do with like maybe daddy issues or fatherlessness. There are some women who will literally feel like that is part of their self-esteem, that they feel like it's like a gotcha that they didn't go through a certain situation that you went through. Yeah, oh yeah, I didn't go through that trauma and I'm better than you because of that. I feel as though I am superior to you because I never faced that same adversity. That is a thing. So a lot of times people, their pain and their trauma that they're carrying, it's shameful. They don't want to tell anybody because people, so many people, they're just kind of vampiric, maybe is the word, in the sense that they don't see, oh, so you started off there and you made it there, so I can do it too. That's so inspiring. Some people, they just have that crabs in a bucket mentality. They're disgusted by the fact that you don't look like what you've been through. They're disgusted that those circumstances didn't break you. They're disgusted that you knew that that was not your final form, your final destiny. They are just looking at you like, how dare you be so resilient? I've been in certain situations where I was broke, but I just didn't identify with being broke perpetually. And that's how I'm not broke anymore. That's how I got out of that situation. Let me tell you, a lot of the people that I know, or I have known, because I've had to get ruthless about cutting people off. You got to trim the fat. You got to cut the dead weight. You got to cut the dead weight because they're just going to drag you down. They're going to, in every way that they can, whether it's intentional or unintentional, they're going to discourage you from your dreams, and they're going to set you on a different course because you're going to be wanting to watch a video. We have free YouTube University nowadays. You're going to be sitting there like, I want to be hungry and take this information and figure out how I can flip the money. I was in that position where when I had no money, I got all the information so that I was like, oh, and once I get the money, maybe I just need the job. Maybe I was just waiting for my taxes to come, whatever it was. Once I get the money, once it hits my bank account, flipped it. I was like, but you have to stay ready because you never know. You could find money on the street. I've been in situations like that where I found money on the street and I said, oh, finally, oh yes, now I can put this plan in place. Now I can invest into whatever it is. I've been in that spot where I'm sitting there just journaling and writing down these things and just creating all these plans and stuff. And then all I needed was to bump shoulders with the right person. That's happened to me where, because I've always tried to put effort into my presentation and try to make sure that I am not bringing what I'm dealing with out of the door and dumping it on other people's plate. I always felt like, let's say maybe the night before, I've had nights where I cried myself to sleep. I've had situations where I have been on the phone with the 988. I don't think I can make it. I think this is my last night. I've had situations like that. I've had situations where I'm scrolling through my contacts in my phone and none of these people feel emotionally safe anymore. I've rebuilt everything from ground zero before. So I know that it's possible. I know that you can do it. You can. But you have to start loving yourself more than you love the comfort of always having somebody to hang out with. Because I'm telling you, sometimes that's going to drag you down. Sometimes you have to just cut the dead fat, avoid these certain people, even if they're in proximity to you, because you're making room for something greater. Sometimes, you're going to make space for that friend who you both mutually pour into each other and you both encourage each other. But the only way that you're going to be able to meet that person and cross their paths is sometimes maybe you got to get a little lonely. Maybe you got to cut this person off. Maybe you got to cut off cousin, brother, sister, daddy, auntie, neighbor, friend, bestie, whoever, boyfriend. You might have to cut certain people off because these people who want to speak ill over your plans, or even they have different habits. When it comes to people who they look like they're doing drugs, y'all could both have, like, let's say you have your last $20. They will rather you supposedly lend them the money so they can go buy drugs or alcohol or whatever, instead of them saying, okay, can you lend me this money? And you lend me this money, I am going to go get this situation popping. I'm going to go get this little machine, this little thing or whatever, and I'm going to use this machine to be able to produce this, or I'm going to flip. Like, certain people, they just don't think in the mindset of investments. I've been in situations where I'm like, hey, I don't know where my next paycheck is coming from, but I'm sitting there and I'm Googling and I'm through, YouTube University, and I'm trying to figure out what is something that I could buy right now that is an investment that maybe it won't be immediate gratification. It won't be the immediate gratification of going to get some chicken wings or going to get some mozzarella sticks, because mozzarella sticks has always been one of my weaknesses. Like, love them. But I've been in those spots where I could get the immediate gratification of drinking, smoking, eating some unhealthy food or something like that. Or instead of that, I'm going to buy myself some workout equipment so that rain, snow, shine, teeth brushed, not brushed, hair done, not done, car, on the road or not, have gas in my car or not, no matter what, I can still get my steps in the house. Sometimes you just have to invest in these certain things where you're able to meet yourself where you're at. Maybe the gym membership is not what you need to invest in right now, because maybe it's just going to be a waste of money. Maybe you're not going to leave your house to go. Maybe, depending on how you feel or how you look, whatever, you're not going to want to leave the house. Some people, they've dealt, I've known people who have dealt with depression so bad to the point where they stop brushing their teeth. They stop combing their hair. I've seen those videos where it's like a hairdresser giving a free detangling service to some person who was depressed and their hair got so matted just because some people, they're fighting so hard mentally, spiritually, emotionally, whatever it is, that the physical stuff is like the least of their concerns. The fact that they stink, the fact that they're musty is the least of their concerns. The fact that their hair is matted, the fact that their teeth are yellow and rotting is the least of their concern. They're like, and that is a real thing. That's a real thing that people go through sometimes. And so, you just have to, you have to avoid certain people. Do not be around those people who are going to set you back. those people who they want to sit around and hang out all the time. Like, oh my God, I cannot stand a super clingy friend who just wants to hang out. Let's just hang out. Hang out and do what? Hang out and do what? Like, I believe in rest. Yes, I do believe in rest and ease and flow. But those type of friends, I've had them before. And I've seen where they're at now and where I'm at now. And they are still just hanging out all the time. They just want to hang out. They just want to smoke. They just want to drink. And they're still there. And they still are in the same tax bracket. And they still have not lost the weight. And they still have not cleared their skin. They still have not grown their hair past their collarbone. They still, whatever it is, you need to stay away from those people who are still, because you might be becoming, you might be blossoming, you might be on a whole different level and trajectory. You have to get away from those people. I think that I love the difference because I've had both different types of friends. I've had the friend who just I've been in situations where I might get up and I have a whole schedule for my day. I had a situation before where I had moved, to a different place. And then I had a friend who then ended up moving to my place that I was living. And my productivity levels from when they first, from before they lived there to when they moved there, literally plummeted in the trash. So bad. I had all these goals because at the time, I wasn't comfortable being a little lonely. They were just a comfortable person and they want to hang out all day. Okay, I guess we're hanging out all day. They want to listen to this crappy type of music that puts bad things in my head. That's what we're doing today. They want to eat this bullshit we're eating bullshit today. And my whole plan for the day, my goals just went out the window at that time. And I feel like at the time I just didn't, I feel like a lot of us can be sensitive to, like I said, these people who make us feel as though, oh, you think you're better than me? Oh, so you can't speak to nobody? No, you cannot speak to nobody. And maybe you don't think that you're better than certain people, but they think that you're better than them. And because of that, they're going to constantly be trying to humble you. There are some people who are so miserable in their life and their sights, they're just so short-sighted that they want to try to humble the person who has $20 more than them instead of trying to go get their own $20. Some people, it's just insane to me because me personally, something I've never understood, I've been around people who were broke, they had barely any money, and it never occurred to them that maybe instead of trying to borrow money for drugs or alcohol from people, maybe I should try to figure out how to, if this is a habit that I want, then I should probably learn how to afford it. I've been in that space before where I was that person where I'm like, if this is if I can, I'm not going to go borrow money from somebody else. That other person, you don't know what they need that money for. They can need that money to feed their child. They can need that money to pay a bill, to pay back some debt, to, maybe they're working on their credit or whatever. And you want their money for drugs, for alcohol. And like I said, this is not about people who are literally fighting addiction, but these are just people who they're not going anywhere. You do have to start seeing yourself differently because I'm telling you, once you glow up just a smidgen, you can literally be in the same tax bracket, same neighborhood as somebody, all of that, have the same amount of money in your bank account, but you can have that thing that's in you, that mindset that this is not my final form, and people will be trying to humble you. Yeah, that will happen. So I am really hoping that this is helpful to somebody. I'm hoping that, maybe you have somebody in your life. Maybe this is, maybe this video is finding you when you just met somebody who looks like they do drugs and you are kind of wanting to stay away from them. And maybe you just are still in that position where you feel like you need some permission. Some of us are like that. We feel as though we need permission or some sort of confirmation that it's okay to do something. Let this be your sign. If they look like they do drugs, stay away from them. Because that's insane. People, you should not look like you do drugs. People should be, let's say you're grown and you want to do whatever. people should be surprised. People should be, oh my God, really, you? That's how it should be. People should not be able, oh yeah, I can definitely tell. I can smell it on you. I can see it on you. You look like you. No, it should never be that. And if you are in my audience, go look in the mirror. Do you look like you do drugs? Do you? Okay, then let's pick ourselves up. Let's be realistic about the fact that your look is probably not going to help you social climb. You want these things? You want the money. You want the car. You want what? The relationship. You want to travel. You want the body, whatever. I promise you, make some changes. Even if you just went from no longer looking like you do certain things, that already will be an immense increase in your finances and in your ability to just be open to new opportunities. You have no idea what opportunities you may have missed out on because you were walking around with red eyes, because you were walking around smelling loud as hell. What opportunities you missed out on because maybe you went to shake somebody's hand and they saw that your nails were burnt. Like me, I'm thankful that I never ended up in a situation where I was burning nails and fingers, but I've seen girls where it's like literally they would spend all this money to get their nails all done. And then they sit and they're burning their nails on like a blunt or something. I'm like, come on, girl. That's just not cute. It's not cute. Your lips are sitting there black. Your lips should not be black. Okay. Your lips, I know that people, it is very natural to have two-toned lips and whatnot. I know that is just like a genetic thing that certain people deal with. And you know that. Look at your baby pictures. Do your lips look better or worse than they did when you were a baby? Did your lips do you look like a smoker? Because if people are asking you for a lighter, you might need to fix something. You might have some things to get together. It is possible to do it. Okay? The first step is working on your mindset. The first step is you need to start realizing that this is not where I want to stay. And you need to be real with yourself about what are you doing and how many of your habits are actually helping you towards your goals. Because you might be self-sabotaging yourself. You could for some people, like I know for me, when I stopped that Mary Jane, the weight loss was so easy. Like literally came to me effortlessly because, I wasn't sitting there getting the munchies all the time. If that's what you really want, start taking aligned actions. Okay. Stop, being addicted to your current reality. Sometimes you need to start envisioning, the next step and the next version of yourself. Start making decisions that are going to bring you closer to that version of yourself. Now, it's like I said, it's okay to be philanthropic. Maybe you want to donate clothes. Maybe you want to buy a meal. That is fine. But no, we are not being around people who look like they do drugs because that means that their habit, everything that they do, they have the schedule of a person who does drugs. They don't have anywhere to be. They're at home doing drugs. They don't have anybody, no, we are not doing that. We are staying away from those women. We don't care if people feel like, oh, we think we're better than. Okay. And do think that I'm better than, it's not even that, but it's just like, sometimes it's like when you've gone through certain things and you just look at these people, you're like, you're not ready. You're not there yet. And I just want to make this clear, just to anybody who's out there, maybe you're at that point where you're wanting to trim the fat out of your life and you're not sure who maybe needs to go. Do any of your friends or family members look like they do drugs? This is your sign. Cut them off today. If you got an iPhone, you can do not disturb them. You can set their haptics for like their vibration. Like if you're not comfortable blocking people, you can make it so that your phone will never tell you when they hit you up. If you want, you could block them. If you want, you could change their contact name to do not answer. I mean, because your contacts are private as far as I know, I'm pretty sure. So you can change their name in your phone to do not answer. This is a tweaker. This is a person who does drugs. This person looks like they do. Whatever that is, whatever you got to do to remind yourself We're not doing that. Remind yourself. Keep reminding yourself. And understand that, like, I've seen videos online where people, they talk about, like, sometimes they're different friend groups or different, like, groups of girlfriends don't get along with each other. That may be because maybe your friends on one side, maybe they're more aligned with the version of yourself that you're trying to grow out of. And maybe your other group of friends, they are more so like the type of woman that you want to become. And you can't have the best of both worlds. You have to really decide, where are you going? Where do you want to end up with? You should be able to be around women who inspire you. You should be able to learn from them. You should be able to, see the tangible fruits of their labor in their life, to the point where you respect their opinion, where you allow yourself to be influenced by them. I always have thought of this, like, I'll see certain relationships where maybe a man and a woman are together, and the man will ask the woman for her opinion, but he never, like, trusts her opinion. He is not allowing himself to be influenced by her. And that is not necessarily a good thing, especially if it's a pattern. I'm not saying, your friends jump off a bridge, you're going to jump too. But you should be surrounding yourself with people where you trust their judgment, and you actually want to take into consideration their opinions, their thoughts, their viewpoints, and you respect them enough to allow yourself to be influenced by them. Because that could change your life. I'm telling you, I know that it is so possible to change your life. It is so possible to change your life in 6 months, in 3 months, in 1 month, in a year. When I think, oh my God, like, I am getting to that age where I can look back 10 years ago. And it's like, sometimes I get emotional thinking about it, because, like, I am definitely like a softie, even though y'all probably wouldn't know from hearing my content. But I think back and I get so sentimental sometimes, and I'm like, wow, like, I just wish the me from 10 years ago could see where I am now, because, like, that girl did not think it was possible. And sometimes, like, there would be times where, like, I had to cut somebody off. I had to avoid somebody. And maybe I felt like this, this sensation rise up in me, like in my nervous system, like, hold on, like, am I getting too big for my britches? Do I think I'm better than? And I had to, kind of get real with myself and that's why I always end my videos with eyes on the prize. No, keep your eyes on the prize. This is temporary discomfort. This is temporary loneliness. This is temporary darkness, whatever it is. Eyes on the prize. Wherever you're going, keep taking the next step. And it's going to get hard. Like, I mean, hey, it's not going to be easy. None of it is going to be easy. Weight loss is not easy. Glowing up is not easy. Changing your mindset is not easy. Healing your mind is not easy. Healing from painful, traumatic things, that's not easy. It's not easy. None of it is easy. But if you keep going and you remember sometimes that's what you have to do. Remember, why am I avoiding women like this? And this video can help you remember what's going to come with them. They're going to have different habits than you. They're going to have different mindsets. Being around them can literally get you to forget what your goals are, what your plans are. You might need to lock in. And, sometimes, people who look like they do drugs, they're just not going to help you. I promise you, they will not help you in any way, shape, or form. So just take that, how you will. I hope I'm not offending anybody. Some of you got somebody in your mind right now as I'm talking about these things where you're thinking about somebody. You might be thinking about someone who either tried to introduce themselves to you or somebody who's in your circle, and, they might be somebody who's holding you back. You might, because a lot of times when you're in a group, or even if you're just out with one girlfriend, there could be people around you who maybe want to approach you, whether that is men, whether that is people who could be your next mentor, your next employer, but they're making assumptions about your character based on the company that you keep. Maybe you don't look like you do drugs, but she look like she do drugs. And so then people are going to be like, oh, well, maybe she does drugs too and she just hides it better, and they just start thinking like, what must they have in common, right? People are going to assume that if you're out with somebody, it's because you have something in common. Don't block your blessings. I would much rather be around the women where I know the least and I'm just admiring them and soaking up the information, because that is how you're going to really, really experience those crazy leaps and bounds where you're like, oh my God, you're looking back a couple months ago, you're looking back to the beginning of the summer and you're like, what the heck? Because I'm telling you, when you really lock in and you start avoiding these certain people, you're making room for new opportunities, for new people. You can make your next best friend who maybe you guys are going to trade so much information like on things, and maybe you're going to inspire each other and both be leveling up and beautiful together. Or maybe she just knows things that you've never heard of and you're just going to be such a blessing to each other, and she's not going to discourage you from your level up. She's not going to ask to get some money for drugs or alcohol. I'm telling you, like, addiction, I do believe it's a disease and all of that, and it is about setting boundaries with people. Because even if you love them, let's say you don't even want to cut that person off and you love them, sometimes them losing some access to you can be enough for them to say, okay, I need to go get my life together because so-and-so doesn't even want to be around me anymore. They can't even stand me and my habits and all that comes with me. Withdraw your attention, revoke the access to these people, because it's going to help you. I'm telling you, when I look back on the people that, like, I've been in situations where I cut a certain person off and I was really sad about it for a while because I was just really used to them in my life. And once I cut them off, then all of a sudden somebody introduces themselves to me like, well, I always wanted to say hi, but you were always with so-and-so. What? Yes, I'm telling you, that will happen. I'm telling you, like, situations will just fall in your lap once you make room for them, and once you don't have somebody, like, if they're just not aligned. Sometimes you just got to think about that. You don't have to be with, you don't have to be friends with people who are same skin tone, same exact phenotype, same exact background, same exact past, same exact every single thing, same exact favorite color. No. But you have to think about, where are you guys going? Are you guys at least going to the same neighborhood? Are you guys on a similar path? Are your paths at least parallel, where maybe you guys are both trying to get to a different spot, but they're in the same, zip code at least? That is who you need to be around. So what do you think, worldies? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below. Until next time, eyes on the prize.